The wind howled through the trees, sending a shiver down Sarah's spine as she approached the old, abandoned house at the end of the street. She had always been fascinated by the place, but she had never dared to go inside. Tonight, however, was different. The dare from her friends had pushed her past her fear, and curiosity got the better of her. The house was a looming shadow in the moonlight, its windows boarded up, and its roof sagging under the weight of years of neglect. Ivy crept up the decaying walls, and the front door stood ajar, inviting her inside. She hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest, but then she steeled herself and stepped over the threshold. Inside, the air was stale and heavy with the scent of dampness and decay. The only light came from the dim glow of the moon filtering through the gaps in the boarded windows. Sarah pulled out her flashlight and clicked it on, illuminating the dust and cobwebs that covered every surface. As she explored the ground floor, the house seemed to come alive with airy creaks and groans. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision, and every sound made her jump. But she pressed on, determined to prove herself to her friends. The kitchen was a mess of broken dishes and rotting food, a testament to the hasty departure of the previous occupants. Sarah couldn't help but wonder what had driven them away. She pushed open the door to the living room, and her breath caught in her throat. In the center of the room, a large, ornate mirror hung on the wall. Its surface was cracked and tarnished, but what caught Sarah's attention was the figure reflected within it. It was a young woman with long, dark hair and pale, lifeless eyes. Sarah's heart raced as she realized that the figure in the mirror was herself, but distorted and twisted into a grotesque mockery of her own image. She stumbled back, dropping her flashlight in her haste to get away from the cursed mirror. The room seemed to close in around her, the walls closing in as if to trap her inside. Panicking, she fled down the hallway, searching for an escape. But the doors that had been opened before were now closed, and she couldn't find her way out. As she frantically tried door after door, she heard whispers in the darkness, voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. They whispered her name, calling to her, taunting her. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as fear gripped her like a vice. Finally, she found a door that opened, and she rushed inside, slamming it shut behind her. The room was small and dusty, with a single window that was barred shut. In the center of the room stood an old, rickety wardrobe. It was the only piece of furniture in the room, and it seemed out of place. Sarah's trembling hand reached for the wardrobe's handle, and she slowly pulled it open. Inside, she found a collection of old, tattered clothes. But as she looked closer, she realized that they were not just any clothes. They were the same clothes she was wearing at that very moment. A feeling of dread washed over her as she realized the truth. She was trapped in this house, and it seemed to know her every move. The mirror, the whispers, the wardrobe. It was as if the house itself was alive, feeding off her fear. Desperation set in as Sarah tried to find a way out. She pounded on the walls, screamed for help, but no one came. The hours stretched into an eternity as she wandered the dark, twisting corridors of the house, never finding an exit. The whispers grew louder and more menacing, and the walls seemed to close in around her with each passing moment. And then, just when she thought she could take no more, the whispers stopped, and the darkness lifted. Sarah found herself standing at the front door of the house, her heart still racing, her clothes disheveled and covered in dust. She stumbled outside, gasping for fresh air, and collapsed on the front steps. Her friends rushed over to her, their faces filled with concern. Sarah, are you okay? What happened in there? Sarah could only shake her head, unable to find the words to describe the horrors she had experienced. She had survived the haunted house, but it had left an indelible mark on her soul. She knew she would never be the same again. As she looked back at the old, abandoned house, she couldn't help but wonder if it was truly empty, or if it was just biding its time, waiting for the next unsuspecting victim to come inside and become a part of its dark and twisted history.